Lifestyle Show once again. I am your host, Karen Bannister, and I am very happy to introduce you to this episode's guest. Yvette Bodden is founder of Awakened Woman, a digital platform designed to inspire and invigorate females. As an author, Yvette writes with endless empathy. And in just 2 years, Awakened Woman has amassed tens of thousands of followers, thanks to over 500 articles centered around celebrity profiles on relationships, love, abuse, motherhood, and Latino culture, infused with the signature blend of Yvette's pragmatism and compassion. Her debut book, A Journey to Becoming the Best Self, which is actually part memoir and part prescriptive fiction, and inspired by Yvette's own post-divorce path from devastation to joy, and I can relate to you on that one, was published in 2019 and received praise from the U.S. Review of Books. And ultimately, Yvette's writing, which seeks to empower and encourage women searching for personalized definitions of success, is an effort to build strong communities through vulnerable and powerful storytelling. So welcome, Yvette. Thank you so much for joining us on the Pink Lifestyle Show.
Thank you so much for having me. That was such a beautiful introduction.
Well, you can tell you've done some amazing things. And I mean,
thank you.
It was just a brief bio intro. I mean, I personally am so looking forward to learning more about you and your business. So, let's just dive into it. I'd like to invite you to first share your personal and your professional journey and how you came up with and started Awakened Woman.
It's so funny because I get that question often, and I didn't set out to create this business. Oh. I set out to build a community and share my stories. Mm-hmm. And then I noticed that over time, I found that so many other women had stories too. And it's almost like this quilt that we weave, and there's so many of us with stories that have overlap. And I found that we can all learn from each other if we just shared each other's stories. So that's where AW Community comes from. I wanted a place where I can share all these stories, including mine, and have women feel A, less alone, and B, just feel inspired and feel like, you know what, she could do it, I could too. And that truly is the driver for AW. It's not, I don't charge for a subscription, and there aren't any gimmicks. It's literally sharing stories with women to inspire them.
Oh, that's beautiful, because we all need that.
Thank you.
We women work, we put a lot on ourselves. So to create a community like that, we all need that. So I'm going to say thank you. Clearly it's helped a lot of women. You seem to have a lot of followers.
Yes. And, I think the most amazing piece of it has been there's followers everywhere. And I've said this before, they're in Kenya, they're in Pakistan, they're in the United States, they're in Latin America. And it's so beautiful just to have one place where all these women can, sort of share their stories or just come in and get reinvigorated by reading the stories. It's really amazing.
Wow. Do people approach you to publish their stories? Do you source them? How do you find these amazing women?
So the first step of AW was sharing my stories. So I do share a lot of personal stories. But if you read my book, it doesn't get more personal than that. But I just started realizing that it's not all about me. It's about all these other women with incredible stories. Mm-hmm. So I'd say around the summer of this year, I created something called the Empowerment Series. And I reached out to women. Some of them are very well known, TV journalists, I have a doctor coming up. I have CEOs of companies. I started reaching out. Obviously, they don't all say yes. Some of them never respond. But I started reaching out to women who are in various industries, various sectors. And these, I wanted to bring stories, incorporate stories into AW that would truly encourage women to go after their dreams, to see that, you know what, she has a resume of wins, but behind all those wins, there is also a story.
Right.
So I started interviewing, women that have been really generous as far as sharing stories. And I call them stories because they are interviews. The Empowerment Series is a series of interviews, but they're personal. The questions are not questions that you would usually see in in your mainstream interviews. It's really interesting. I ask more questions geared towards the woman, the mother, the wife. They're more motivational. They're very different. And I'm so grateful because, for example, I have an interview with Lisa Vidal. She's currently on Grey's Anatomy. She's been on the Beauty, I think it's called The Baker and the Beauty. She shared her battle with breast cancer. She's shared, really personal notes that I connected to, and I think a lot of other women connected to. She shared her faith in God and how that got her through. And these are things you don't really hear about in mainstream interviews. You sort of hear. So I try to focus on the personal. Obviously, I'm always very respectful. Yesterday, I published an interview in the Empowerment Series with Kara Golden, who is the CEO of Hintwater. She's also the author of Undaunted, which is like a Wall Street Journal. It's on the bestsellers. She shared her motivation for what she does. It's just, these interviews are personal. They're different. And this is what I want. I want women to see that, behind even the most successful person, there is a human being, there is a woman, flesh. And you can have overlap in your stories. You can have a common thread. And I think that's important for us to see. We're not in competition. We should be learning from each other. And that's what I'm promoting.
That's beautiful. You're right. Enough with the female competition. Let's build each other up and support each other more. Enough, just enough. It's exhausting. We have enough things in the world to deal with without tearing down each other.
Absolutely. And that's what
you're doing.
Thank you. And that's what I look to highlight. And at the same time, I like to share my own stories because I think it's fair that if I'm asking these women to share and be vulnerable, I should do the same. So there are some stories that are pretty personal. I just did one on miscarriage, which was really personal. But I think it's really beautiful that women can sort of take the armor off and just tell it like it is. And you know what? You accept me or you don't, but we all have a story.
Absolutely true. And it seems like it's like some of these topics, okay, you mentioned, breast cancer, you mentioned miscarriage. Some of these topics seem to have a stigma around them because they're not, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's over there. It's like the more that we talk about it, the more it becomes mainstream and the more we can do about it and band together. So that kind of seems maybe possibly one of your goals, or was that one of your goals, or was it just kind of one of the byproducts of?
No, that was purposely done. I did And I'll share this because it's on, it's on the website. But I've shared some stories that are very sensitive nature. I did an interview of a woman who was she was in a situation where she was in a marriage that she was dealing with domestic violence, and I shared about her, or she shared her breakthrough and how she was sitting in a bed in a hospital, broken bones. Her kids walked in the room. It was her wake-up call. I shared another story. I think it's been a couple of weeks now, of a CEO of a medical center in Westchester. She just wrote a book, and she shared the story of how she was raped at 9 years old. And
Oh boy.
I get really emotional because I read the book. She was very graphic, and when I sat there and I interviewed her, I connected with her. I felt there was just such a connection to her experience, and she literally went from trauma to victory, to triumph. Like she's a hero. I truly, I mean, she went from nothing to everything. And I think these are the stories that we should be talking about, because I think in some way we're all broken and we really need to talk about it.
And confirm that it's okay that we are. Right?
Absolutely.
We're all broken. We've all gone through stuff, and it's okay because we've all gone through it.
So to your point, yes, each interview has, it's really funny because there's a keyword in every interview, and every woman that shares the story, there's a word connected. Some are sharing resilience, some are sharing trauma, some are sharing motivation. There is something different to every interview.
Well, that's beautiful. Oh my God. And you have, how many interviews do you have?
Oh gosh, I think I've done since July, maybe I think about a dozen. I have quite a few lined up. The last 2 weeks in December, I'm not going to do any because things get crazy and everyone's busy.
You're allowing yourself some grace to take some time off.
Yes, and you know what? It's emotionally, I connect to what I write, and it's emotionally, it can be draining, because I really am respectful of the stories, and I want to write them in a way that honors the women. That is my goal. So you should visit the site and look at some of those interviews. I did one with Benita Alexander. She's been on Dr. Oz. And she talked about her love con. It's an incredible story. She literally was conned by a world-renowned surgeon. I mean, it's an amazing story. You would not believe it happened to her.
Oh my gosh.
So that is something that it was amazing. World-renowned surgeon took her on a whirlwind romance, and she found out, I think it was a couple of months before they got married, and a big Italy wedding, she found out it was all a lie. He was living a double life. It's insane. Oh, insane. It's correct. I mean, the things that happen, it's insane.
Can't make this stuff up. Oh my gosh.
No.
Okay. So I have a lot of reading to do.
And she is.
And wait, there's more? Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, this is the crazy thing. You would think, well, that happened to her because she was this or that. No, she is an extremely intelligent, very sweet, warm woman. She is an Emmy-winning journalist, documentary writer. So she's amazing, and it happened to her.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh,
So
okay. Well, I don't know about, okay, listeners, you're in with me, and we have a lot of reading to do. Okay, because I want to. Oh my gosh. So I mean, thinking of tell me about your book. Because I read it's part personal story, part kind of fictional.
self-help.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tell us
So
about.
it's autobiographical, but it's also self-help. And what I did was I took the reader on the journey of um of my I don't really go into my marriage because honestly the marriage wasn't the big issue. It was more towards I was with my ex for almost 10 years. Towards
Mhm.
the last 2 years, I started questioning who I was. I felt that I had lost my identity, and I think so many of us, um, sort of relinquish ourselves. We just give up who we are in the name of love, in the name of family, and that's beautiful. But personally, I started questioning who I was, what I liked, what I wanted to do with myself. And it was almost like a quest for finding Yvette. And that quest cost me my marriage because he he was happy. He was happy with where we were, and I wasn't happy with myself. So it wasn't so much about him, it was
Mhm.
about me. So I take the reader on the journey of my marriage imploding, and I went through the denial, I went through the depression, which was very difficult. I went through different emotions. I believe in the 5 stages of grief for
Mhm.
any loss. So I sort of explained that. And then on the other side of that, which I call my part two, is the awakening. And that's where Awakened Woman comes from. And the awakening part is it comes from pain, but it
Yeah.
really does, it's a beautiful transformation. And it's incredibly painful. But it's almost like you go through this metamorphosis.
Hmm.
For me, it was worthwhile. I think you have to really dig deep,
Right.
um,
Definitely.
because it's not something that I would say, well, all women should do it. I don't know. It's each individual is different. Each situation is different. That's what I chose. I chose me, and it's painful. But if I had to do it again, I would.
Right.
So
You have to live your authentic life.
Ab-
Absolutely.
absolutely. So I take the reader through that whole transformation. And there's also, I talk about dating in your 40s and sex in your 40s. And, you know, in a very funny way. I mean, I talked about online dating and all the frauds and
Ah,
and falling, I talk about falling in love again. I've been in a relationship for 7 years, and love is different the second time around. In that next phase, it's different. It's I I sort of describe it like falling in love with my eyes wide open. I know he's not perfect. I'm not perfect.
right.
I think we're good for each other because we push each other to be better. But no, it's not perfect, and I'm okay with that. And he's okay with that because I am not perfect.
Ah,
Because the first time around, I was like, no, I'm perfect. I am this, this incredible being who, I mean, it's different the first time you fall in love.
absolutely.
Because
Right.
you have all these preconceived notions and you have all these butterflies, and it's almost it's not authentic, I think, to a degree, because you're not being authentic.
Right. And because you knew yourself a lot better, you knew who you really were. You could go into the relationship knowing who you were and knowing you weren't perfect and knowing that nobody's perfect. And you'd already been through that journey,
It's
or at least the start of the
absolutely.
journey, because as we all know, it's an ongoing thing. But
Oh,
Right?
You know what's funny though? When I was younger, I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna meet the guy of my dreams. I'm going to get married, have a baby. Maybe I'll have a dog and a house and a car. At the end, I
Right.
really believe this. But now that I'm older, sometimes wiser, I don't know. I just feel like this never stops. I'm still learning about myself. You know, it's really an ongoing journey. It's I think it's funny that you say that because I have to remind myself that the changes don't stop. You continue to evolve, but that's the only way you're going to grow. And I think if you stop growing, you sort of become stale, and that's not what I want for myself.
Right. I totally agree. It's like, I don't know, at least once a month something else comes up and you're like, whoa, whoa, what? I didn't, oh, where did that come from? Okay, that's what I am now. I mean, please,
Yeah.
I'm not the only one, right?
No, oh my God. I can totally relate to what you're saying. It just doesn't stop. And I think now I'm in a better place, and I'm not saying every day is good, but
Right.
now I'm at a place where I accept it. Change is going to happen. I'm not always going to um, be happy, but I'm okay with that because at the end of the day, I know that I'm in control of my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If I know that there is going to be change, I'm just sort of always expecting it, to be honest. Not in a dreadful way, but in a way
Just,
where it's reality.
it makes it easier to go with the flow when you, oh, okay, what's next? Let's go. Right.
Exactly, exactly.
Wow. Okay. That's a great conversation. Okay. So when you started Awakened Woman, did you set out for it to be just like a community, or did you like have a first design to like create like a business with it, or
I,
where were you ultimately going to go with? Not that I mean there's no right or wrong. I'm just curious where your intention with it, and what have you learned since you started it? You know, what would you have done differently, or
I honestly, I feel that um, I started it as a community. So I wasn't thinking of it as as a business. Um, I think it's important to help others. And for me, um, I didn't feel like I wanted to monetize off of AW. Um, I do content writing for magazines that I do, and that generates some income, which goes back into AW. So that's more of my business. I write content,
Mhm.
um, but no, I didn't set out for it to be a business, which is really interesting. Um, no, I
I mean,
didn't, honestly.
that's no, and there's nothing wrong with that. You would create a community to bring women together. But you knew that going in, so you knew what
Yes,
it was from the start.
I did.
Right? Okay, so that's that to have clarity on what your passion and what your actions were doing and what you were building is paramount. So that's
Absolutely.
fabulous. Now have you learned what have you learned along the way? Um, do anything different or just it's been an evolution?
Um, it's been an evolution. I think I was a bit naive about, um, all businesses need to generate some type of income to keep them going. So I think I was a little naive about that. Um, just personally, I think that my purpose is so much bigger. So I just I make it work. Um, I write for Be Latina magazine, which I love. I do, small. I have small writing gigs here and there. So I generate that way to keep it going. But I would say I was a bit naive about just how to generate to keep it going. I think that's been a little difficult, knowing how to pivot the model. So if I had to do it again, I think more about, sort of, okay, well, X, at X point, how do I want to pivot this? So I think that's something that I would I would change. I would sort of learn more about how to pivot.
Okay, so maybe you think more in the future, more strategic planning from the beginning, or okay,
Yes,
we all deal with that.
absolutely. But that's how you learn.
Absolutely, and thinking of that, since you're at you've been doing this for what 2 years now, I think.
2 years.
Right. So, I mean, okay, so we just talked about what you might have, or what you wish you knew or done differently, whatever. What do you see in the future for this journey, for this effort?
Well, I'm probably halfway through writing my second book, which will be a lot more saucy. It's no, it's not autobiographical. It's
Okay,
definitely it's fiction. So I'm working. I'm halfway through that book, which I'm really happy about. It's just hard finding the time to do that. I mean, I'm writing for Be Latina magazine. I'm doing AW, it really is a full-time job, because I do everything. I do the marketing, I do the writing. The content is very personal, and I have maintained full ownership of that. It's too important to hand it to someone else. I just can't do it.
I understand that, right?
So I'm doing a lot more writing. Oh, and I have a daytime full-time job. So
Yeah.
So I sleep standing up.
Sleep? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar now.
But my hope is just continuing to reach women. It really has become my purpose, and I love doing it because I want other women to feel inspired. Every time I write a story, I feel inspired. And I want other women to feel that, because there are so many of us that need it. And I have been there, and I have felt hopeless. I have felt the sadness. I have felt that I'm not good enough. And that is a really lonely place to be. And I want women who are feeling that way to see that there is light on the other side of that. That's important to me.
This has been the conversation where I'm just.
Don't make me cry, Catherine.
No, I just say don't make me cry. I'm in a spot in my life too where there's more change going on. I'm telling you, this is very well timed. So I mean, personally, oh my gosh, thank you. I'm glad we found each other, because this has just been amazing. So your purpose is to reach and inspire women. Tell us where they can find you to find these stories.
Yes. So you can go to awakened-woman.com. You can find me on Instagram as Woman Awakened. You can find me on Twitter as Woman Awakened. You can find me on Facebook under AW Inspires. And you can just Google me and you'll just find it all. And my book, A Journey to Becoming the Best Self, is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
Lovely. Well, that's wonderful. Now, if you happen to be driving or out for your lovely morning walk, which you should be, and I'm not doing enough of myself lately, but if these links, this information will be in the show notes and through the social media posts, so you will be able to find her. Trust me. Unless you said just Google her, because I'm looking forward to diving in and reading a lot of these stories, because in maybe by myself with some tissue. I know that I need it.
You know
I
what?
need it, so.
You know what the great thing, and I did do this purposely. The great thing about these stories is that I purposely made them quick reads so
Okay.
that people can get the context of it really quickly, like I don't know, 8, 9 minute read, as opposed to these long drawn out stories.
Right.
The other thing is I do have a section of, oh, you'll love this. I have a section of short stories. And I
Oh,
have,
okay.
yes, those stories are more elaborate. They're just, they take a little more time. But
Mhm.
there's one story, and I want you to read this. It's called of the cost of her jewels, I believe it's called. I wrote it so long ago. It's my absolute favorite story. It's a short story though,
Okay.
and those have a slightly different format, but it's just so beautiful, and each one has a lesson.
Oh,
There's
that's
something
beautiful.
to learn in each story.
That's just beautiful, Yvette. You're doing some amazing work for the world, for women, for future women. I mean, this is just going to be passed down through generations. So again, I mean, thank you for coming on the show and sharing yourself and your story with everybody.
Thank you.
Please go to Yvette's website. Again, I'll have that link for you, awaken-woman.com.
Yes,
Is that right? Right.
yes.
Awaken-woman.com. It'll be in the show notes, and links to her book, and look forward to her second book coming out soon. Good luck with that. I know it's hard writing a book. I know. So again, Yvette, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you everybody for tuning in. And again, till next time. Bye-bye.